I spent a part of this morning offering ashes to go at the Stringfellow Park and Ride not far from here. Only a few took me up on the offer to impose ashes at the bus stop. Then again, only a few commuters stopped in the cold to make eye contact on the way to the bus. One man pointed at my sign. "How much?" It's free, I told him. And Diego received his ashes happily for free. I liked his question. I liked the skepticism. Everything has a price. You're offering ashes. How much? But it also calls attention to how odd this sacramental thing that we do tonight is. As the memes say, I spent my Valentine's Day rubbing dirt in people's faces and telling them that they're going to die. Seems a strange way to spend the holiday. During the Ash Wednesday service, we impose ashes. Father Julian and I will make the sign of the cross on your forehead in ash, marking you not as Christ's own in baptism, but as a flawed creature of dust and ashes. And we say, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Happy Valentine's Day. It's a strange sort of ceremony. Why do we impose ashes? Because Jesus seems to think that this is very strange as well. Jesus says, beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. And we read this right before putting ashes on our foreheads so that everyone else can see them but us. Jesus says, whatever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others they're fasting. And then we put ashes on our faces to disfigure them and signal the beginning of Lent, to show others we are fasting. As my liturgy professor said, this is a strange reading to put on Ash Wednesday, one of the few public displays that Christians have. Of course, we're here at 7. We're all going home after this, and no one's going to see it. Jesus is calling us away from ritual piety to true worship, one that isn't self-centered, but neighbor-centered and God-centered. But his advice is important. Amid a public display, we have to ask, why do we impose ashes? Because Jesus warns against showy public displays, against hypocrites who pretend to be someone they're not. And the prophet Isaiah goes farther in his warning. Such displays not only hide terrible behavior, they're an attempt to excuse terrible behavior. Look, you serve your own interest on your so-called fast day and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist with the excuse of ritual piety. We cover our sins in public shows of worship. But the righteousness of God is more than getting your ash in church. It sounded funnier in my head. The fast, the Lent God hopes for, is to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke, to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house when you see the naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin. That's quite a Lenten discipline, to break every yoke and not to hide ourselves from one another. So why bother with the ash at all? Why do we do it? Perhaps perspective. Author Barbara Brown Taylor writes that Ash Wednesday is the day Christians go to their own funerals. It's not about what others will see, but what you hear when the ashes are imposed. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. You, just like those who came before you, and everyone who will come after you, are dust and ashes. You, along with your accomplishments, no matter how great, and even your aspirations, no matter how high, will return to the dust. That's not to bring us down. Those are simply the facts. And as Christians, we cannot pretend to be anything other than what we are, dust and ashes. We don't point this out to aggrandize ourselves, how could we, but to humble ourselves. to deprive ourselves of even the excuses we use for our mistakes. Here it is in ash, in the sign of the cross on our foreheads, our truest piety inscribed there. I sin, I'm flawed, I'm weak, I make mistakes. I'm limited. I'm dust. And we must be willing to go to that place. Because it is only by acknowledging our sins that we can be reconciled to God and one another. It's only as finite, limited creatures that we can seek our infinite, unlimited Creator. It is only through death that we know new life. It is only by going down to the dust with God on Ash Wednesday that we can rise again with him on Easter. So our Lent begins in ashes. How much does it cost? Humility, like forgiveness, love, and new life, is a gift from an all-merciful God. It's free.